Budget Committee, February 2nd, 2022, public hearing.
Okay, I'd like to, this point, open the public hearing on the
I'd say everything was false.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, good.
What?
I know, you're not,
Kind of.
it's not.
Turn up the volume. Did somebody turn up the
There you
video?
go.
Got it, okay, great, thank you.
10 years ago.
Thank you. All right, as we've done in the past, this is your time, and we are here to listen to you. When we're done with the public hearing for the school district, we will close the public hearing portion. I will convene the budget committee, and we will vote to recommend or not recommend the 2 or 3 items that are relevant to the school warrants. Then we'll do the same with the town. We'll do the whole public hearing up front, and then we'll close the public hearing and convene the budget committee again, just go through the whole line of warrants. And I think that would be the most efficient rather than opening and closing the meeting for every vote. However, if someone has a point, I'm happy to reopen the public hearing. You know, it's your town, it's your money. So, we'll all work together. Okay, the school has basically 2 warrant articles and a third, which is a backup. Now, let me just explain those briefly. The first one is the main budget. It's actually a little bit below what last year's budget was, but there's a reason for that in that the second warrant article is the union contract for salary starting next year going forward. So you have to add that first year to the budget, you know, that first salary increase, and then all the others will follow. So are there, we have Members of the school board, and we have our superintendent here. Are there any questions on the budget? Now, you should have a copy. They're a small white copy from the paper. Copy ready. Maybe somebody from the school department would want to explain this coming budget while people are looking it over.
So, as you said, the budget is slightly down from last year. It's about $13,662 lower, or just under a 0.5% below. Some costs that have decreased are we've had middle school tuition cost decrease, as well as some of our transportation costs. We've had a slight increase in some of our special education costs though, however. And as you said, warrant article 2, about the teacher contract, the CEA, is not reflected in that number. And the first year of the contract is 29,000. Sorry.
$29,468.
Thank you, that's correct. And so if you add the two together, it's approximately a 16% increase, thereabouts, as you pointed out. So, is there any questions?
Sure. Anyone have any questions? You know, we always, I think it's always interesting, people sometimes ask about enrollment. I don't know what our current enrollment is in each school.
About 56, right?
Currently 52 at the new public school.
52, okay. And what do we have for tuition students in middle school and high school this year?
I'll do this on my,
I know you're struggling at.
is about 14, I know it's funny to say a half a student, but there's 14 and a half students budgeted to go to Portsmouth High School next year. And, I think it's 6, but hold on. And 11 students projected to go to the middle school.
Okay. Right, you know, try your patience, what is the current tuition for the middle and high school?
The projected rate that we were given for next year is $20,845 for the middle school and $19,887 for the high school.
Okay, right. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, I usually ask this question every year, so there's two questions I have. One is, how many of the 52 enrolled next year are Newington residents?
45.
45. And then the other question I have is, what is the cost per student for the elementary school portion only? I'm not trying to get the high school or the other part.
Actually, I'm sorry, I don't think I have that number. It was just published a couple of weeks ago. I want to say it was approximately 26,000 though for Newington Elementary School.
Well, last year, the number was 36,000, so it dropped 10,000 per student?
Then no, I guess, I thought it was in the 20s, and I'm mistaken. I don't, if you give me a minute, I can look it up on my phone.
Okay.
Yeah, 36 was on us.
Yeah, that's what I thought, 36 was Newcastle, to my recollection, but,
Oh, God help them.
It's a figure that's actually calculated by the New Hampshire Department of Education.
yes, it is.
I just want to know what the cost is to the taxpayers per student going to the elementary school. And I
It's
don't-
not a fixed number, that's why.
Yeah, it's not a fixed number. I mean, it's based on your previous year's expenses, and then they subtract things like transportation, food service, out-of-district placement, and they come up with a total number, and then divide that by your, average number of students as of October 1st of that year. So it's a number that, when we submit our annual financial information to them by September 1st, they then kind of tweak it so it's equal with, everyone in the state, has the same way of computing it. So I'm almost there. Sorry, hold on. Almost there. So the Newington number is, $26,825.
Okay, now, you said you deduct the transportation cost?
I don't, the state does.
Okay, so I'm just trying to find out, is it $26,800 per student that the taxpayers in this town are paying for, and it doesn't include any, it includes all costs, it includes the cost for maintaining the facility, cost for maintaining the buses?
Again, it's a formula that the state uses to calculate the cost per pupil to educate a student. You are still paying for transportation, you are still paying for food service, but it's not calculated in your cost per pupil. It's a formula that
Okay,
is.
so what does it cost to operate the elementary school, the whole thing? What is that?
It's-
I mean, that's really what the bottom line, what is the cost to operate to the taxpayers to the school? And then we can divide that by the number of students, correct?
Well, it's the total budget that's being proposed,
Well, the total-
divided by the number of students.
Yeah, but the total budget is for the middle school and the.
That's correct.
So
you would
what's the
have-
elementary portion of the total budget?
I'd have to calculate that for
All
you,
right.
because we need to take out certain costs that would be related to special education. That's something we can do going forward, or I can, if you'd like to email me, I can come up with that information.
I guess I can ask
for
it
you.
later. I was just trying to find out what it's costing us for real dollars, not what the state takes and gives.
Correct.
I'm trying to figure out what is it costing the taxpayers per student for the elementary portion of the school, and then the junior high, and then the high.
Again, if you would like me to, if you'd like to email me, I'd be very happy to, take care of that information for you, when I have a few minutes to calculate that
I understand.
information.
Do
Yeah.
you think we get that prepared for town meeting, so when they're presenting their?
Yeah, that'd be good, that'd be fine.
Okay.
You have it by then?
I mean, it's gonna be a definite rough number, because, you know, I'm going to take the total budget that's being proposed, I will subtract any, junior high or high school costs, and then divide that by the number of students you have,
Divide by 52 and multiply by 45?
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, I'm just trying to understand the budget.
That's okay, but it's, again,
It's
the
fuzzy to
number
me.
but the number that you'll get from me will not be, it will not match what the state, New Hampshire Department of Education is calculating. Yeah.
I guess it's really confusing, all right,
It is confusing, but again, they've been doing this a long time. Yeah,
thank you.
okay. All set?
Yeah, got the numbers for the town meeting, it'd be good.
Okay.
Are there any other questions on the school budget? Okay, we can always come back to that. The next item is the, warrant article 2 is the teacher contract. And this begins, the fiscal year begins in the summer of 2022. So this will take effect in, roughly 6 months. Yes, you can explain that to us.
Good evening, Mr. Lamson, members of the Budget Committee, members of the public. My name is Sal Petrolia, Superintendent of Schools. I'll just speak a little bit to Article 2. The current collective bargaining agreement expires June 30th, 2022, and the parties reached a tentative agreement back in late fall after approximately 7 negotiation sessions with the association. Dr. Mark Joyce and I represented the school board and the school district. So the proposed warrant article includes a 5-year successor agreement to commence July 1st, 2022, and continue through June 30th, 2027, 5-year agreement. Average increases for staff members off the salary schedule, meaning those staff members with greater than 10 years of experience in the district, roughly 3% and 3.1% over the 5 years. And then under their proposal 4, Appendix F, reached tentative agreement for staff members who are still on the salary schedule, meaning staff members who have fewer than 10 years of experience. And those increases were roughly 2.8% and increasing to 2.9 in the 3 last years of the contract. Other changes were simply some language changes that non-cost items, including sick leave, grievance procedures, that is no additional cost to this agreement. So we think it's a fair contract, and hopefully the voters will agree to the same.
So basically, as the superintendent explained, this is the negotiated COLA. Teachers are on a 10-step program, so that teachers who weren't getting steps anymore get, looks like 23% more of a COLA, because they're not getting those steps to help fill in behind inflation. There's a third article here, and basically what it means is that if the town votes down the second article, then what they need to do is have a special town meeting and discuss only the financial aspects of the agreement that was reached. This is agreement that's reached in good faith, which means that the management team representing the town argued in good faith to get the best deal possible for the town. And the teachers union did the same for the teachers. So management supports this agreement because it was the best agreement they thought that they could get in the interest of the town. And that's the same with the fire department, which will come up later. So, I don't know if there are any further questions on either the salary agreement or the main budget. How many, I had one question, how many teachers are part of the negotiating unit?
There were 2 chief spokespersons, Ms. Lodge and Mr. Tooker, and also other members of the staff participated, pretty much taking meeting minutes and learning the negotiation process for future negotiations post-contract.
And how many teachers are represented by this contract?
I'd say 10.
10, something like that, something like that?
Approximately, yeah.
About 10.
Yes. And some are different full-time equivalents because some, depending on the position, job share with and take positions in other districts within SU. For example, Unified Arts position.
So they're
Years they
full-time
expand.
union teachers, but they divide their time up.
Okay.
Okay.
And their FTE, full-time equivalent, is
Yep.
based on the needs of the schedule needs of the school district.
Yeah.
of course.
Okay. Yes, there's a question back here.
Can you please tell me, how does this teacher's contract compare with comparable school districts in the area?
I would say that the Newington contract moving forward is very favorable and competitive with districts along the seacoast in particular, and across the state. Matter of fact, as part of our negotiation process, both the association and the school board do what we call comps, so that we have data moving forward, meeting at the table as to comparisons between Newington and other districts.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Are there any other questions on any of the three school district articles? One is the main budget, the second is the teacher's contract, and the third is the necessity of having a third meeting, a town meeting, should the town refuse the Article 2, which is the teacher's contract. Okay, if not, I will close the public hearing on the school district, and I will convene the budget committee meeting. And by the way, we're gonna do the minutes at the end. But what I'd like now is a motion. We can do it individually, just three of them. Why don't we do it? Someone would move Article 1 and second it.
Motion to move Article 1, the school district budget at $2,398,777.
Okay, do we have a second? Second. Is there any discussion or any amendments to this budget?
A couple questions.
Okay, sure.
Sure, I believe it was, sure. The tuition for students from Newington to go to either Portsmouth Middle or Portsmouth High School, you mentioned was roughly $19,000 for the high school?
Correct,
Okay.
1987, I believe.
And does that include transportation?
No,
And does it include special education?
if it's included in the school, but if they need outside services, then those aren't extra.
Okay.
Contracted services, if they need contracted services.
Okay. But what about meals?
Meals are always the responsibility of the parent.
Yeah, you mentioned that was part of the
No,
way the state looks
food service.
at food services, I mean.
Yeah. In Newington, if you run in a deficit, then the general fund needs to supplement the food service program, because the food service program always has to kind of fund itself, basically.
Okay.
But it would not include the high school students or the junior high students.
So maybe when we look at, to Dennis's question, when you look at the total cost per pupil for the Newington Public School, you take transportation right out of the entire equation, because that's not factoring into our tuition for our students to go there, and anything else that doesn't get factored into your cost per pupil to go to the middle or high school wouldn't be factored into what this school would run off of.
That is correct, but we code everything by, like, a 2 is the junior high and 3 is the high school, so I just would not include those costs.
Gotcha.
There's an easy way to break it out.
Okay. I have two other things, nobody else has.
No, okay, go ahead.
In one of the budget line items that you have, it mentions the operation of the plant.
Which is facilities. So that's a fancy way of saying facilities.
All schools in the district, or is that Newington Public School?
For this budget, it's Newington Public Schools.
And that money goes to the SAU?
No, that money goes to take care of your facilities or your operations of the plant, as they call it, such as your oil, your electricity, any facilities needs.
Okay. Thank you. And then my last question or comment is more directed at the school board. One thing that's been hard to reconcile, I think for me anyways, on the budget committee this year has been that there's nearly a 10% increase in the cost of the SAU, which equates to about $142,000 of increase to operate the superintendent's office. 79,000 of that has been put on Newington to accommodate. That means that, so towns like Greenland had an increase of $29,000, Newcastle had an increase of $8,000, Newington $79,000, and Rye $24,000 roughly. And most of that is due, whether it's fair or unfair, I can't say, I suppose, but is due to the valuations of property in town. And the way that that gets figured out, which is kind of a double-edged sword for everybody. So I asked the school board to, please pay closer attention to that in the future. That's one of those unintended consequences that hits taxpayers pretty hard when we look at our total tax rate every year.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the budget committee? Are we ready to vote on Article 1? All in favor? Any opposed or abstentions? By the way, the selectmen and the school board reps each get one vote. Two, yeah, one. Same with the school. I saw, you were good, I'm not just looking right up. Okay, the next one is Article 2, the teacher contract. If I could have a motion on that?
I'll move the warrant article number 2, in the amount of $29,468 for the collective bargaining agreement.
Okay. Yes, second. As you know, in the fine print, what we're doing by this is that we're approving, if the town votes this warrant, automatically the first year becomes part of this coming budget for the school. And the other years are committed, and that's why it's a warrant, because it's like a 5-year contract. It's like buying a firehouse, a fire truck, payment plan. Okay, any questions on the contract? Oh, if not, are we ready to vote? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, fine. The last one, I'm not sure we have a choice on it, whether we really need to recommend it, but I think we will just to be sure it's on the list. Somebody would move that, for some reason the town rejects it, there will be a warrant, a third warrant as a backup, that they would authorize a special town meeting. Someone want to move that? Okay, second. We have a second? All right. Is there any discussion on this? As far as I know, I'm not a labor negotiator, but it might apply to the fire department too. If the town voters reject a contract, then there has to be a meeting, and the town then negotiates with the union on just the money part of the contract. Everything else is already settled. So that's what would happen if either the teachers union or the fire union contract were not. It would have to be worked out. Sometime and probably requires that. Theoretically, we do them both in one, but everything is that.
Put a police detail on that.
Is that?
Have to put a police detail on that.
Okay, we're ready to vote on 3? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? None. All right, good. Thank you very much, representatives of the school. You did a good job balancing all that stuff on your feet.
Congratulations, Superintendent Petralia, on your coming retirement.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to adjourn the budget committee meeting, and I will now reopen the public hearing for the town warrant article. And, it's okay to jump around, but I'd like to try to start in order. And warrant article 1 is the main town budget. That's, as you can see here, you all have a copy of the budget. Just for your information, in recent years, the budget committee and the selectmen have been very close on the budgets. Oftentimes, if we have a disagreement during the course of our meetings, one side or the other will adjust to try to bring them in line. There's a couple of changes. For example, I think it was $8,000 was voted by the selectmen to receive a grant. And it turned out that that grant was gonna be $2,000 more, it's gonna go from 8 to potentially to 10. So the selectmen changed theirs, and then the budget committee at our last meeting changed ours too. The reason is that these grant items aren't spent unless we get the grant. And we didn't wanna lose $2,000 by not having it in the budget. If they were gonna give them 10,000, we wanted to have it budgeted for 10, but to take advantage of the full grant. The only other difference was an article with the Historic District Commission. They had asked $7,000 to do a study on the preservation of historic documents. And the selectmen said no. No, the selectmen offered him, I think it was $2,000. And after our hearings with the HDC, we agreed that we would give them half of what they asked for, $3,500. So that was $1,500 more than the selectmen recommended in their budget. We did find about $300 in FICA charges that the selectmen had left in their budget that we could save. So we took out that 300. So basically the net difference is roughly $1,200 or $1,250 between the selectmen's budget and what the budget committee is currently recommending. So that's just the background on what difference we had, very minor. With that, if any of you have any specific questions on the main budget, we'll take that one first. Okay, just once again, Article 1 represents several budget committee hearings. You know, we break it down to police, fire, town offices, etc. But when you vote, you're voting on this as one warrant article, it's the whole town budget. Okay, any questions on Article 1? All right. We can go back if you, if somehow you're inspired. Let me find my article.
So I have a point of clarification.
Oh, sure, okay.
On the blue form, it's calling Article 7.
Yeah, the reason is that in the town, I believe, and maybe a moderator could tell me, in the actual town warrants, you're gonna get a lot of other administrative warrants before that. So we think of it as Article 1, but that's going to be Article 7 in the town.
So should we be looking at this? And I know we have our previous sheet, but I just wanted to,
Either one works, but I guess technically it's Article 7.
okay.
So yeah, that would be fine. I mean, if you move on those article numbers, that would be more accurate. But I think that people would understand.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that was Article, I'm calling it Article 1, it's Article 7. The next one is, Article 8 is $200,000 for vehicle replacements in the fire department. Any questions on that? Okay, again, we go back to that. We have a little bit of history. We have gone back and forth trying to save as much money with the fire department as we can, and we went through a period of buying secondhand equipment, hoping that would save money. In the end, it didn't, because the repair costs were so high on these fire engines. So we have new management in the fire department now, and the chief and assistant chief. And we think we have a pretty good replacement program. It's not cheap, but it's gonna guarantee us good, up-to-date, operating, safe equipment, you know, down the line. So it's a program, it's kind of the strategic spending program, a strategic savings program. We support it. We wish it was cheaper, but that's just the way it is. It's a very, very complex piece of equipment. The requirements increase every year. So anyway, that's Article 2, or Article 8 with the town. Okay, then? Okay. And Article 9 is the collective bargaining agreement for the fire department. You will notice we have members of the Board of Engineers here as well as the management of the fire department. The first year is more expensive because it catches up the firemen for 2 or 3 years where they weren't getting any raises. The thing, once they went into negotiations, all future raises are frozen until they get a contract. So the first year is catch-up. Each additional year basically makes up the cumulative COLA for each year. So if the COLAs combined are gonna run from about 52,000 to 59,000 over the 5-year period. Now, do you folks in the fire department know what that COLA amount is?
It's fixed. It's fixed at 2%.
2%, okay,
That's a calculation of steps and COLAs.
combined.
So it's the total expenditure.
What's that?
That's the calculation of the incurred step associated with the contract.
Okay.
Additionally with the COLAs, the school board was talking about the steps for people under 10 years of employment.
Yeah.
That's calculated into that number.
Okay, all right, good. So again, the fire engineers are here. At our meeting, they assured us that they represented the town as vigorously as possible. This was based on a study that the town and the fire engineers did about area fire departments, and we need to be competitive. And I think we're slipping behind. The problem with that is that you wind up being a training ground for other fire departments. If it's got salary, it's not competitive, they start there and then they move on. Okay, so that's that. Any questions on that article? All right. The next one is Article 10. This is $10,000 for major road reserve. Questions on that? Like I said, you can go back, I'm just gonna go through these, so raise your hand if you got a question.
Just to clarify, John, the 100,000,
I'm sorry, 100,000.
just the zero.
Good catch, yeah, major road reserve. Again, all of these are savings accounts. We raised the money this year, we put it in the bank, and it's there with the selectmen's permission to spend when they need it. Most of these have a maximum, that they, once they reach a certain point, that's all they need to save up, and they'll stop adding to it until they need to draw it down. Okay, Article 11, similar. It's an ambulance. Article 12, library building capital reserve. Article 13, vehicles for highway. Article 14, recreational facilities. This is one, by the way, you might notice that the budget committee has tabled because we wanted more information on that. And also, you may notice that this one was not recommended by the selectmen. So depending on what comes up at the public hearing and what information we have, we'll be either recommending or not recommending this at tonight's vote. Article 15 is for 10,000.
Go ahead, John.
Yes,
That's a typo, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
That was recommended by the selectmen,
it was.
the recreational facilities.
It says
Oh, it says that. Okay,
Yeah,
thank
yes.
you.
But this is a table vote. I'm sorry, if I said not recommended by the
the
selectmen.
next one.
We haven't voted on it. Article 15 is computer equipment. Okay, Article 16 is Historic Preservation Committee. This one was not recommended by the selectmen. The budget committee at our preliminary vote was tied 4-4. So again, depending on how the vote goes at tonight's meeting, we will either recommend or not recommend. But the statutes say if we're tied, it's a not recommendation. You need a majority to recommend. Okay,
Is that a, no, I'll save my question for later.
okay. 17, again, this is a seasonal recommendation. This is the one that was not, this is for a recreation director, request by the budget committee, seasonal. The selectmen did not recommend it, and the budget committee tabled it pending, more input, maybe perhaps in this other public hearing. Is there any, on that one, is there any comments or questions on that particular article?
I'll ask a quick question.
Sure.
Is this like for the summer program, or is this position, it says seasonal, what is the season?
We didn't have, Gail, we didn't have any, input from the recreation department at this meeting. And so, I think it's fair to say we don't know.
Is there anyone from recreation
Yeah.
here? Oh,
It covers our large event, to help us with our large events and also the camp. We felt it was important because, we're lacking some members, getting burnt out, so to speak, and helping us with those activities to get everything set up and everything, not to mention, since the Y has kind of been back and forth with us, it kind of has somebody in the seat, so to speak, for camp that we have to oversee things, so we're not left in the lurch like we were last year. So it's not just the Y, not just camp, it's to assist the committee with the bigger events, and so that we can hold more, because the town residents have asked us for more adult and whole family activities and so on.
so would this be more than a like part-time as needed position versus the term seasonal?
If we can possibly turn it into something like that, then we would love that, but due to the budget restrictions that we put on top of our other article, that we have to address some maintenance issues that are long overdue, then down the road, if we can make it a position like that, then we would love to, but it's just that's what we could work with for our budget at this time.
It's just the term seasonal makes it sound like it's like a 2, 3, or 4 month appointment, but if there's other events, and I'm not negating the other events, I think this is a cool idea. I'm just trying to figure out how a type of position would be advertised or potentially filled if we don't know the time periods of the employment. That's, I guess, my question. All right, if you don't have the answer, that's fine, it's just,
Yeah, no, we're working
that's
on
my
this,
question.
especially for, to kind of explain to the residents how much it is that we do in the volunteer capacity, that we do physically, so to speak, compared to other committees, so that it kind of gauges the position, assist the resident in making that decision of what it is we actually do, not to mention that the summer months currently are our busiest time that we would need this position. So that's why we did it as a seasonal, so to speak, for the time being.
Okay.
Okay,
For a little more clarification, John, if I could. When I first moved here 40-some odd years ago, we had a recreation director. And if anybody was here back then, there was a lot of programs that was organized, go to theaters, go to sporting events, go to the Amesbury big slide thing. Everybody on the budget rec committee, probably except me, is retired, is working. And it's tough when you're doing a 40-hour, plus have a family to try to devote all the time you have to organize other events, like we have the Charlie Ride, which you narrate. But we've already lost a co-chair from last year because she just got totally burned out, trying to run everything, and Becky heard probably do all of the work themselves. I don't know the status is, I haven't missed a meeting on the Y program, but we in or out, or I don't know.
Currently, tentatively, yes, but there's no contract yet.
Oh, so this is, if the contract doesn't get put through, somebody's gonna have to take up the slack because the committee can't handle it. If it does get through, this person, 10,000 isn't a whole lot of money when you figure, probably $25 an hour plus FICA, plus taxes and all, and workers' comp and all the other stuff. It's kind of a guess right here for first year. If we do get this approved and we don't have to use the person, then we could go, okay, we'll adjust that and put it as a line item probably in the budget next year. So it's a chance to try to bring more stuff up for the town.
okay. Any other questions on the recreation director article? Sure.
I'd like to ask for clarification. I think Becky, you said left in the lurch by YMCA. Can you explain that a little bit, that situation? Because not everyone in the room might understand what happened in the past and what was done last year to correct for it.
Sure. We were told at the beginning of the year that we were going to have them overseeing our camp, and a couple months later, give or take 1 to 2 months before camp started, we were told, sorry, we're unable to cover because the Y is going through some management changes, so to speak, and the new management at the time decided that they did not want to take on Newington. And it's looking like they're going to take it this year, but we'll see, because last year, like I said, we were told last minute, had to do all the hiring quickly, had to use what we had, so to speak, last minute, and kind of put us in a position. So that's why, and it took a toll on a few members of the last minute scrambling, making sure that we were up to code with everything, especially with the pandemic, having meeting with police, fire department, notifying parents, making sure we're taking all the proper channels just to keep our families safe.
As a parent who has 2 kids in that program, last year, discussing with my wife how it was one of the best from our point of view. I also understand that there was a lot of struggling behind the scenes to make that happen. I think a lot of credit should be put out to the volunteers and to everybody who was involved in that. Being left in the, thinking that someone is, YMCA or whoever it is gonna do something, and then they pull out at the last minute is extremely disruptive for such a thing. And what an amazing program that you guys put together in such a short time. I think a lot of credit goes there. And to expect that from volunteers is a lot to ask. I think it is appropriate, in my opinion, to have some sort of recreation person there to do that important work for the town.
Okay, any other questions from the public on Article 17? Okay, 18 is police department, radio, electronics. Chief is here if you have any police-related questions. 19 is major fire department equipment, and that's equipment that's not major trucks or ambulances. 20 is, this is a good one, 41 cameras and cruiser-mounted audio-visual equipment capital reserve fund. This is 2,500 replaced in the fund. Okay, is that a new fund, or do we have that fund established?
No, it's a new.
The new fund, right? Yeah. Okay, Chief Bilodeau, could you just quickly explain what we're up against if this is mandated?
Yeah, so if it's mandated, we're still looking to see if it's a funded or unfunded mandate from the state regarding it. And just ironically, today we got information regarding the state providing funds up to $50,000 for this program. And looking into it, we're gonna look at all the paperwork tomorrow to see where we stand. I know 2,500, it doesn't seem much, but I kind of want to keep on adding a little bit each year. And if there are grants like one's coming out tomorrow, I want to be prepared to have it.
Yeah.
My goal was to build this fund so we could do, if it was a 50-50 grant, have enough money in it. Because we're looking for a whole setup with the cruiser video and body worn cameras is going to be over $100,000 for everybody outfitted and all the cruisers outfitted. And that also talks about the electronic equipment we're going to need for storage of the videos and being able to not store and save and then distribute to whoever needs it, obviously defense attorneys or the prosecutor. So,
Okay.
so that's my goal.
All right. Great. Okay, let's see, the next one is major fire equipment. 25, let's see, that's 5,000, we've got a cap of 25,000. EJ, if you just tell us briefly what this major fire equipment is, it's not trucks, it's something else.
So essentially, it's anything that's above a certain dollar amount that we can't afford in our traditional line item budget, like if it's a big ticket item or piece of equipment. it may cost upwards of $15,000, $20,000 to $25,000 for one piece of equipment that our budget line can't absorb.
Yeah. Can you give us an example of something like that maybe?
They go by a different name, but the jaws of life that everybody knows.
Oh, sure.
Those pieces of equipment are upwards of $25,000 for one, either
Okay.
cutter, spreader, or
Yeah.
anything like that.
Okay. I remember way back, we finally got the money together to get our first Jaws of Life. God had me 20, 30 years ago maybe, but those are, it saved lives. Anyway, okay. 20, this is, did we just get there?
Yeah, you did that.
Okay. 21. Okay, this is a petition by an individual, and we put them through the budget committee, and the selectmen have put them on in their budget, but it's submitted by an individual. And it's, for a $25,000 purchase of additional equipment for the playground, the old town hall with board of selectmen agents expenses. Okay, so the selectmen did not recommend this, as our notes say, and the budget committee is tabled that vote pending more information. Is there someone from the recreation committee who talked to that?
I'm the one that did the petition.
Oh, yeah, okay, fine.
On it, it's not very loud.
That's fine, we have a microphone, that's good. You can-
Okay.
Turn it on.
Hello? Okay. Sorry, hi, so I'm a private citizen, and I put this, petition through, 3 years ago about, I had been asking about trying to improve the, playground at the old town hall. Being that the rec committee is volunteer and had a lot on their plate, I volunteered to do some work and get some information about the playground. Meeting with playground people, it became clear that our playground was unsafe. So 2 years ago, before the pandemic officially started, we were able to basically just make the playground safe. We did add one piece of equipment that we kind of snuck through because we got it in the deal pretty nicely. But we haven't added a whole lot of, we've added a lot of safety and not a lot of extra entertainment to the playground. I feel like our playground is not like a normal town playground where people go for a little while and they play and they have fun and they go home. Our kids in camp spend 8 hours a day there, 3 to 5 days a week playing on the playground. So I feel like it's worth an investment, and we haven't, short of the last 2 years ago, haven't put really any money into it in decades. So in speaking with the playground designers and salespeople, asking what they recommended for entertainment value and cost bang for your buck value for the playground, they had mentioned a zip line, which sounds scary, but it is designed to have, it's designed to be safe for 5-year-olds and entertaining for 12-year-olds. And it seems like that is one piece of equipment that we don't really have anything like it on the playground already, and that it would just be sort of endless fun for the kids. That's what I had intended with but the warrant article doesn't specifically say what it is. We could, the other discussion is to replace the slides. I feel like that should be also tabled for a couple of years from now when we do probably the last renovation of the playground that I intend to work on. But, because replacing the slides also doesn't add anything new to the playground. But, so I am hoping that we, as a town, can invest in our children and bring something forward. I think there was a lot of concern about the safety perception of a zip line, but the fall height is like under 2 feet, and it's, I mean, like I said, it's approved for safety for 5-year-olds, so ages 5 to 12.
So that's what I think we were, when we discussed this, we were asking, what the proposal was, primarily a zip line, is that the one piece of equipment you would add?
The playground, it would be, the estimates I got are for, yeah, the zip line, the safety footing underneath, and the installation. I got the quote last year, and it went up $8,000 in 1 year, given how things have gone. So I'm really hoping we can do it, because I don't want to bring this to you guys next year for an extra $10,000.
Okay, so it's a safety pad underneath it?
I mean, it's the same. It's the 12 inches of wood chips.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. How long is the zip line?
75 feet of fun.
75 feet.
It should be able to go from basically the where the slides are along the back fence line, and not be something people cross.
Do adults get to use this?
Adults can use it, yes.
Oh, yeah.
You can use it.
All right, thank you. Zach?
John?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
just a couple of questions or comments on the same warrant article.
Sure.
I know the selectmen did not approve it, and I hear, now maybe they can confirm, one of the reasons was the zip line, we were a little nervous about it, and the second was, why wasn't it in the rec budget? Well, by the time Jess approves recreation, our budget was, our warrant was already, too far along, so it couldn't have been put in. And the second thing is, the selectmen get to spend the money, they get to say where the money's going. Jess can want, dancing people, whatever she's trying to get, you still get the final say so, right? Yeah, you're the agents to spend the money no matter what a citizen might want it to go to. So if it doesn't get approved, then you're gonna wait another year. I suggest that maybe next year, for longer, I mean, this is I got grandkids, we go to a lot of different playgrounds, this is probably the funniest I've seen. They like to play in the dirt pile as much as anything else that's out there. But, maybe they can start a capital reserve fund and someday, 4 or 5 years down the road, have a huge addition. But, piecemeal is nice because you're adding something else. It may turn out the zip line doesn't go through this year, needs more study, whatever it takes, I don't know. But if it's not approved, then nothing can happen. If it gets approved, the $25,000 can go somewhere towards the playground. And, if they find something worthwhile, then they can encumber it if they can't get it in this year. But then, all those summages out there, playing in the dirt pile is probably their favorite anyway. So, the second problem, I bet you're glad I'm not here and on the stage I can't ask any questions. It's not me.
Okay, the article is written doesn't stipulate that it's a zip line.
No, it doesn't.
As Jack said, it's much more general. It's, for equipment and upgrades, purchasing additional equipment at the playground. Okay.
John,
What
may
is
I?
left is the agent, which they usually are. Yes.
Just kind of tagging on to what, Jack just said, if that doesn't go through, we still have Article 14, which is Town Recreational Facilities and Equipment Capital Reserve Fund. Would the Budget Committee look at, which currently has a balance of $36,771.20. Would the Budget Committee be interested in adding funds to that, so this playground equipment would fall under the existing capital reserve budget? Or is there any reason why that can't?
So the reason why our warrant article is that, the other warrant article that we have is that we have, major maintenance that we have to conduct that will be in that capital reserve too, that we, if anybody is driven by the baseball field, that's one of our, on our checklist to get done this coming year, and resurfacing the tennis courts and so on. We've been going back and forth with different quotes, so to speak, and then not to mention that they've been, employment's been an issue too on a couple of the quotes that we've received, so, but that is, some of that is, our plan is to use that to maintain our fields that are way long overdue. It's already been brought up to us by the school that the baseball field's becoming a safety issue as well with some of the equipment over there, so that's on our checklist, that what some of that will be used for, just to give some of your perspective. But I just wanted to bounce off of what Jess was saying, that the Recreation Committee is supporting her on this. When she approached about the playground, it was said that we were gonna do it in stages, and the town did approve that it was in stages, and this playground that we are addressing is also the one at the Old Town Hall where most of our events and activities are held, and not to mention where the town uses as a rental space for events and parties for all families, so I just figured that out.
I guess the only thing I wanted to add on to that is when the current playground at the school was put in, my children were, my 20-year-old children were in kindergarten and first and second grade. I actually wrote a grant to help do that, and that's when actually this capital reserve fund for town recreational facilities was created. And part of that creation was to maintain, upgrade, improve the playgrounds, not just the school, but behind the Old Town Hall in itself, Newington. So, I mean, I support us putting in more equipment. I think the zip line sounds absolutely awesome. I'm just thinking that looking forward in the future, it should all, I feel like it should be under one, potentially under one capital reserve fund.
Not to mention, this piece is for 5 to 99 years old, okay? And most of the pieces of the equipment on this playground are like swings or the slide or things that not necessarily a lot of the all age groups can enjoy themselves.
Good, any, what was that article? 21? Right, okay. Any further questions or comments from the public on the main budget, Article 7, or any of the other articles?
Yeah, I want to comment on two things. One is on the last one, which is a petition. A petition's different by citizens is different than what the other article we have in there was Article 14, thank you. It seems to me that's money that we've been putting away every year to invest into the playground. And now we're going for an additional $25,000 on top of that. I'm just trying to understand why we're just not using that money we already have in reserve for the things that we need. The other question I had goes back to the ambulance and major medical. I thought we had divided that up so that the ambulance funds weren't being drained.
No.
Weren't being drained by equipment, and that the ambulance had its own fund. I thought we broke that up last year.
That was fire.
Fire.
That was apparatus. So generally, when we purchase an ambulance, we purchase most of the major medical equipment with that ambulance. So it falls in that 10-year lifespan, so those two have stayed together because they're purchased at the same time.
It used to be for both new equipment purchase and major repairs. So what happened was, you thought you were gonna save up for a fire engine, you kept taking money out to what you had. So that was broken up, I think, into two different ones. One was to buy and one was to repair. Okay, that's what they did. All right, thank you.
Okay, any other, yes, sure.
I don't know if this is allowed, but I just don't understand town budget that well. So if, my understanding 2 years ago with the playground and the capital reserve fund of the, rec committee is that, I mean, they have kind of a base that they need for emergency repairs of various things and the replacement of the tennis courts and all that. So when we had the $18,000 approved 2 years ago, we purchased the equipment out of the capital reserve fund and then replenished it so that we're back to kind of baseline. Is it sort of semantics where this comes, like if we allocate and raise and appropriate $25,000 for this, I mean, it's sort of, I imagine the selectmen would probably assign it to the rec committee. Like, I don't know what, if there's a reasonable, like, complaint about whether it's in the rec committee budget or not in the rec committee budget. If it's, we're still trying to add it on and replenish, I mean, either wait till we have the money or borrow the money from the capital reserve fund and then replenish it. The goal is not to just drain out any capital reserve fund. We want to have a base as a town to have the ability to replace things. But I think if we're in a position where we want to make an investment, we need to vote to have the investment. But, and I'm, like I said, I don't quite understand the semantics of where, is it semantics or is it specifically really important where the money is? We're still trying to raise enough money to put this thing in.
Okay,
So can you mention the surfacing of a tennis court, what that costs, and how frequently we do it?
The quote is about $9,000.
So, not being a tennis, I didn't realize, the tennis court needs to be resurfaced periodically, like every 5 years? The way that, and how much was
Longer,
it for?
but where we plan to do that next year.
And how much was it for that?
$9,000.
$9,000, so, you take that out, and I can remember a few years ago, the, ball field is in tough shape. We had, a certain amount of money in the budget for it, and they couldn't get a bid anywhere close, they were all overbid. so we didn't do it. But when you just like anything, like your lawn or field, it's just gonna be more and more work. So this is two, that's probably into the thousands somewhere too. So the two major items, they would come out of the capital reserve fund. And, it's not, we know those items, we know the, 9,000 every few years on the tennis court, rather than hit you up with that in 1 year. You know, any major things like that could be handled in the capital reserve fund. So as far as, buying equipment, I didn't know that way back when that started, that was for, playground equipment. And I don't think there'd be enough in there with what we have and what we need and we want to raise to be able to do that this year.
Okay, I mean, I guess in answer to the first question, Rebecca, you could conceivably take that out of the capital reserve fund, but it's a fairly major new investment. As Jack said, it's a capital investment. It's an expansion. The capital reserve fund was intended to maintain the equipment you already have. It's probably about right for that.
Correct.
To take 25,000 for an expansion would mean you'd have to replenish the capital reserve. So making it a separate item, I think is appropriate, so the town knows exactly what it's voting for. If they want to zip line, they'll vote for it.
I just have, just odd related question popped in my head. What is the revenue we get from renting out those recreational fields, like Port City Soccer, Seacoast Lacrosse? I'm assuming they all pay a rental fee to use those?
No.
They use them for free?
Yeah.
Our kids use their,
That's what I
it's a sharing. Reciprocal.
Actually, one more follow-up question, sorry.
Sure.
So if I wanted to hold an event at the Fieldville Town Hall as a resident, I have to pay for that, right?
I thought
But
it was
the sports teams use it for free?
I don't know, I thought it was free for residents. It depends.
Okay, because the rental form has a $1 fee on it, so that's what I was asking.
It's for the building.
Oh, it's for the building?
Yeah, the
Okay.
field, you can rent the picnic grove, I think,
Right,
for free.
Grove is free.
Oh, okay.
Outside is paid. Okay. Any other comments from the public hearing for any of these 21 money-related articles?
Okay, I have one more question,
Sure.
sorry.
Okay, Gail.
I'm going back to actually to Article 7, I apologize, this was just a lot of paper and I was just flipping through it as fast as I could. In both the executive office budget and the highway department budget, there are lines for professional training that really haven't been expended over the past few years, but they do have dollar values or increases, and I'm just inquiring if these trainings are going to be held, or people will be attending these trainings? Because we've got safety program, professional training, and I just lost my page. I think there was SALT training or something on here. Oh, I gotta find it.
Yeah, sorry, Mark, go ahead.
You should have.
Under executive office, you'll note that last year, in the 2021 budget, we did not have a fund. We did not fund any money
Okay.
for training. So we had to take the training out of the NHMA membership line 562. But there was training. The trustees of the trust funds and one of the town executive office employees and our moderator attended training. And then under highway, you're right, they do list trainings that so far have been free. We're just not sure if next year that will be the case, so.
Okay. What is the safety program?
Testing of
The
CDL driver test.
thank you, CDL drivers are required to be tested. And
Is that
so,
is that the highway drivers?
yes,
All right, so it falls under your budget, not their budget?
Yeah.
right.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions on any of those articles from 7 to 21?
I've got a quick one, I
Sure.
was left with the impression that people were renting our fields and the money was going directly to town hall to, for that revenue, so when Gail asked that, I just wanted her to know that that's, what we were under the impression of, but we'll definitely be following up with the town office regarding that so that we can maybe build revenue to the town for those fields, if we're gonna have people out there using them, why are,
requirement of the selectmen has always been that there be Newington residents on these teams that are using the fields. If they don't have Newington residents, they're not allowed to use the fields.
So it's only the actual building that is being rented, they don't have to pay for using the field at all?
Right, and our residents that want to have a picnic in the Grove as well do not have to pay a fee, or at Fox Point, they don't have to pay a fee. All the open air places are free to the residents.
Okay, any other questions? All right, I will, if there are no further questions from the public, I will adjourn the public hearing, take about a 2-minute break, and then we'll convene again for the budget committee hearing. It's a public meeting, so you're welcome to stay and listen. It's just that your input would be limited.
Oh,
Okay, so we'll take it in about 2 minutes.
That was very nice.
Okay, what I'd like to do is go through these articles that have been moved and seconded, with the amounts that are currently recommended, and then we can discuss and vote. So as efficient as possible. So we could get motion on Article 7.
So moved in the amount of $7,907,366.
Okay, and a second. Okay, is there any discussion on Article 7? Yes.
I have a question. So we were just, given the over expenditure request sheets today. Under executive office, the insurance, so it looked like there were several, lines that were over expended and then money came from that that line to cover it, and it's the insurance and property liability line item. And my question is there's a 5% increase for, this line item in 2022, so I just wanna make sure that's accurate, you know, cause it seemed like we had some extra from last year, so I just wanna make sure that 5% increase is warranted for that item.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that one too, if you don't mind, Emily. You know, we go through the insurance department pretty quickly as a budget committee, because sometimes we're under the impression there's just nothing you can do about it. But it looks like we transferred $30,000 out of the workers' comp line item that we under expended, even with that, by $30,000, yet our budget is still up at basically what it was the year prior. So to Emily's point, it should be what it looks like, close to $60,000 that was not spent out of workers' comp. And why are we keeping the budget $60,000 higher?
The committee will remember that we were very fortunate due to, not so fortunate with COVID, but because of COVID, our insurance rates fell across the board from property liability, workers' comp, last year, and also health insurance went down. Because of that, we didn't have to expend as much of the funds out of those lines. And luckily so, because of course, we had further hours that had to be worked in the executive office, and that offset the extra hours. We expect it to go back to normal this next year.
Your workers' comp insurance is something that gets billed after the fact. You don't know what the cost is gonna be this year?
Yes, we do, we have those rates.
Okay, so how much is it supposed to be for 2022?
The amount that's reflected in the budget?
That's a 30% change from last year.
I just wanted to also mention that because of COVID, both our property and workers' comp insurance and our health insurance gave us a return on surplus, and it was approximately $61,000 this year. Of that, the employees got a percentage of it back on the health insurance, in proportion to what they pay in to their health insurance, and the remainder went back to the general fund. However, next year, it's calculated on a standard rate, and we don't have a guarantee that we'll have that same return of surplus again. That was an unusual situation for this year, and that's why you can see the almost $60,000 difference.
So if I understand you correctly, sorry I'm hijacking your question here. The insurance company gave the town back a 30% bump relative to $61,000 because they were being nice?
Our insurance is done through a pool of towns and cities in the state. So it's a nonprofit in essence, and because of that, when there are excess funds, they get returned to all of us.
Because claims were down.
Exactly.
Okay, Jennifer? I'm hijacking the question. Any further comments?
And I have one follow-up question. So the workers' comp is typically, in at least the private sector, calculated on wages, as well as claims. But, so, I'm just struggling with the fact that that went down, I guess. That seems odd to me. So is it not, do they not do a wage audit then, or the insurance company?
We did a wage audit.
They do, okay. So maybe wages were down in
It was the
2020?
same situation, we also got a return on the workers' comp.
In 2020, we underspent the budget by about 8%. In 2021, we underspent the budget by close to 25%, 30%. Is there a year on record where you spent what you expected? And I still don't understand where you're coming up with $188,019 for 2021, and then claiming the 0.5 percentage point CALIA savings. How are you still coming up with that same number minus the CALIA? Has that been accurate in the past?
This is the first year of the CALIA discount, and that is accurate. They gave us that figure. These are the quotes that they've given us for insurance for this year.
I understand from a budget perspective, having a fund that could be under expended that substantially, so we can move $30,000 around is anti-budget committee, right? I take it personally.
I wouldn't turn away the $30,000 rebate.
No, take that.
You know, I get USAA insurance that a lot of people do, and they, usually at the end of the year, you get a dividend, you know, they claims when it's not. Because it's a mutual organization, it's like okay, any other questions on Article 7? Yes, Emily?
So the debt service under, in this over expenditure report, under the debt service, we missed the last payment for the lease purchase payment for the fire truck.
There were 2 contracts back in 2013 that were involved when the fire truck was leased. And the first agreement said that there were so many payments. The second agreement said that there was 1 extra. When this budget was developed, the first agreement was looked at. The good news is we didn't owe it.
Okay, any other questions on Article 7?
Margaret, could you clarify that for me? Because we did take a payment out of a different line item because it wasn't budgeted. On your debt service over expenditure request, you over expended the line by $5,100. That, I think that's the one that, Emily's asking about. That's 990, which is the lease purchase of fire truck.
Which department?
Debt service, sure.
Right, so the last payment was not budgeted. Thank you.
But not. Okay, so you had only budgeted in the $14,742, and it really should have been budgeted for $19,904.
Exactly,
But both of those payments are complete for 2022,
yes,
so that line's been moved to 0, right?
right.
Okay, any further questions on Article 7?
On the over expenditure report for EDC, talks about the consulting wages. I'm having trouble reading it.
Those funds were used to hire a consultant before the budget was finalized in December or January of that winter. And so the funds were spent, but of course the committee just funded it at $1. And so they had to take funds from another line to compensate for that, but didn't spend any further funds out of that line.
So the total budget, it came out of their budget, just came out of a different line.
Right.
Thank you.
I was wondering if we could have clarification from the preliminary budget hearing on the capital outlay for the police cruiser and how that ended up working out.
All of those funds were spent, and the chief has his new cruiser.
Yeah, so we do have the cruiser that we got from last year, but right now it's sitting in our bay because we're waiting for the equipment from Two-Way. So what we did was, prior to the end of 2021, we purchased the equipment. It's on back order, so there should be no funds out of capital outlay for that.
So I think the question was concerning, it would appear that the police cruiser was budgeted for $49,000 and cost $39,800. And then 2022, the budget request is for $53,000, selectmen at 46.9.
In the capital outlay budget, if you look at the expenditure, you'll see as of 12/31/21, 50,000 has been spent.
Okay, any other questions? Still on our Article 7, main budget?
I had two follow-up items that I had asked during the regular meeting. One was actually, I believe it was for the police department, it was something about your telephone, I think. Was one of my questions that we were gonna circle back on.
I thought that was answered.
Yeah, there it goes. I thought,
I think it was something you had a question to follow up with the fire department, not me. I could read it.
oh yeah, that was answered, sorry.
Just so I'm clear, John, that capital outlay line item for the police department, for the police cruiser, they have a department budget of 53,000, and I believe we moved the selectmen's number of 46.9.
Okay, this coming year.
Correct.
Yeah. I think that would make sense. We didn't change what the selectmen recommended for 46.9.
Now that we have now that we have the chief here, I'd like to know the discrepancy between the 53,000 that was requested and the 46,900.
So, I don't recall doing the 53,000, I thought I put in for 50,000 this year. So what the issue is when it's time to do the budget that you guys, that requested for us, I don't have the state bid for the cruisers at that time. So I'm trying to estimate what it could be. It could be anywhere between, I think last year we paid maybe 32 or 33,000 for the cruiser. And I think this year it's 33 or 34. And then the electronic equipment, outfitting the cruiser, I have to try to estimate that that's gonna be $10,000 or a little bit more because of the, getting the design of the cruiser on the outside, the lettering and everything like that, and the equipment. So it's one of the reasons I put in 50, and I have been consistent in the last couple of years, is just because I don't have those numbers regarding the state bid.
It's good to have you here, Chief, because we kind of went back and forth on this line item a little bit. Like in 2020, you spent almost 67,000. Last year, what was the total there, Martha? I still can't find that in the green sheets for Cheryl. That was spent.
Last year, $50,082.
And this year, we've got the number 46.9, but was 2020 more than a vehicle? Was it a K9? Would that have been an outfit? Or?
No.
It was something else, or it wasn't just.
No, I know there was $6,000 additional for a laptop, but that shouldn't have come out of capital outlay. I think it was the capital reserve account that it was coming out of, because one of the laptops and the cruiser died, so.
Okay.
But for $67,000, no.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions on Article 7?
I just got a comment. So this paper we got tonight would be much better if we had it earlier.
Yeah, there's no.
But, because now we gotta go through it. We're going through the budget, so it'll be real easy, real quick. Just a comment.
Is that possible in the years, future years, Martha?
Definitely. The budget committee had asked for it before the public hearing. I apologize that it was so late. We will definitely work to get it to you earlier.
Okay. Any further questions on Article 7? Now are we ready to vote? All in favor of recommending said sum? On Article 7, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions, okay, very good. Article 8 is the fire vehicle, basically the fire truck, capital reserve fund. Any questions on that? Do we have a motion on that?
I'll motion to appropriate $200,000 to be placed in the replacement vehicle operated by the fire department capital reserve.
You got a second? Second, okay. Any further questions on 8? If not, we can vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Abstentions? None. Okay. So the next one is the collective bargaining agreement. If I could have a motion on that? It's okay. For the cost as stated there, is there a, this is for the fire department. Is there a second? Second. Is there a second? Brandon? Okay, any further discussion on the collective bargaining agreement? Okay, if we're ready to vote, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? None, abstentions? None, okay. Good. We now have Article 10, which is $100,000 for major road work. Can I have a motion on that?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Rick. The second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion on Article 10?
Yes.
Yes, is that a yes?
Yes, please.
Okay.
That'll bring the fund balance to $468,812. And Martha, I know in years past, the big one that we were waiting on, I think was Gosling last year. Is there a major project in the future for this year?
The capital improvement plan had highlighted Shattuck Way, however, we are hoping to hold off on that for 4 to 5 years. After that, we have Woodbury and Piscataqua as two of the other major roads. We also have the other end of Gosling, the north end from Woodbury up, that has to be completed.
And, okay. So the capital improvement plans, which we have, you guys have published those, a nice job. Those aren't to come from any of the budget line items, right?
Right.
I guess the bottom line is, we said cost was a highway expert, more or less here, but, so you guys think you're gonna need the full 468,000?
Yes, there's potential also for the state to bill us for one final bill for Woodbury Avenue.
Isn't that just like the state?
How much is that? How much do we know? How much that might be?
It could be up to 200,000, that was their original estimate, but we have not seen the bill yet, so we're hopeful.
That would come out of this too, if they did that. All right, yeah, that's right. Okay. Any further questions on Article 10? All right, we're ready to vote. We have a motion, do we not?
Yes.
All in favor? Aye, opposed, abstentions? None. Okay. Article 11 is, if I could have a motion for this, $50,000 for ambulance.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, good. As we said, that includes the equipment for the ambulance that we placed together. Any further discussion? Ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? See none, abstentions, none. Okay. Article 12 is Library Capital Reserve Fund. If I could have a motion on that. 20,000.
Motion.
Okay, a second? Okay, any discussion on that number? Okay, all in favor of the library, Article 12, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, good. Article 13, I can have a motion, 15,000. Motion from Emily, is there a second?
Second.
Second, there it is, okay, good. Okay, any discussions on this one? Highway Department, Capital Reserve? Okay. Please vote. Is that number right, balance at $84?
Yeah, that's the new backhoe this year, John.
Oh, it's the new backhoe, that's
They
right,
spent it all.
okay. Well, at least you didn't reserve for that. Okay, ready to vote? All in favor of Article 13? All right, Any opposed, abstentions? None. Article 14 is, if I get a motion, this one is, remember, we have not voted on this before, the selectmen have. If I could have a motion on that.
10,000.
Okay, and a second? 10,000, okay. Any discussion on this one? This is $10,000 town recreational, this is their main budget. Yes,
Well, they have a separate budget other than this.
is that, yeah, they do, but I mean, it's,
Yes.
you know, we're talking about two different
Capital.
capital reserve funds for programs.
Yeah, so I just have a question.
Mhm.
So there's $36,000 in there now, so we're being asked to put another $10,000 in, which would bring it to roughly 46,000. The tennis resurfacing is about 9,000, is that? Correct.
That's the estimate there right now, but we've been up to bid, the way things are going everywhere else, so we'd be surprised if it's up
Alright.
another 1,000.
What about the ball fields?
We had a quote, we only got one, just for budgeting purposes, though, wish I'd written it down. It's a few thousand, I think.
Okay.
So we'd actually be, with what we have, nobody's got coming up, we'd be dropping into what's already in the bank. So the 10's basically committed, and we'd be taking other money out from the capital reserve that's already there.
Right, I guess where I'm going with this is that I know there's another warrant article asking for money for, recreational facilities. And my question is, you know, if there's money potentially already there, or, you know, after we raise another 10,000 to do that project.
Well, that's a good question. You could theoretically take the zip line out of this. That would leave you, if you grant this, and you've got 21,000 left, you might squeeze out the projects. But the case would be, I guess you would need a vote for this one and the other one.
If you took what's committed to, or what's planned on, plus the zip line, I think you'd wipe out the capital reserve fund.
Even the 46,000,
You
You
think
use
it would
the
go over
46.
46,000 with,
Well, it's 25, or closer to 30 right now for zip line. Say 10,000 for the tennis court, there's 35,000. And then the field, another few $1,000s, there wouldn't be a whole lot left of that capital reserve fund. This is basically a little bit of a cushion, but out, every year, we haven't put any money in there a whole lot.
So, just to understand this better, Jack, so if article, I think it's, 21 is defeated, would the rec committee use the capital reserve funds for the project out on the?
We'd have to discuss it.
Okay.
Yeah, there is,
It basically, right now, the way I feel, is it's basically wiping out your savings account.
Yeah.
Probably not. However, there's one possibility, and it's up to the moderator. The order of articles can be changed. And I've had a request to move 21 up before this one. So, say 21 doesn't pass, an amendment can be made to this one to add some money into it. Maybe give, and leave enough of a balance that the rec committee can still operate.
Second comment you made, Jack, was that the zip line's more up towards $30,000.
Well, I think Jessica said the price went up from her original estimate.
I'm not sure, I have a couple estimates, I'm hoping, and they estimate high. So I'm hoping it'll be closer to 25, and honestly, I don't know. I've got a few, when we bid it the first time, when we actually bid it, it goes down a little bit. I probably should have written it for 30, but I wasn't sure which one we were liking at the time, and I wrote it and did it, and now I'm thinking the one that's 29 looks more like what we need, but I'm hoping that'll be lower, and I don't know.
Thank you.
I think I would feel more comfortable putting more money into what we already have going, and then, figuring out what we want for equipment, how much exactly it's gonna be, and things like that. Just because we already have, and I feel like there's going to be a pretty good amount of people who are gonna probably feel close to the same way in terms of looking at asking for $10,000 on Article 14 and then asking for 25.
It may be that Jack's idea of changing the sequence would work, because then by amending this article at town meeting, that would be clear that they were okay with the zip line. There's a piece of state law called no means no, where if the town explicitly votes against the zip line, they don't want a zip line, period, then you can't do it, because the town voted against it. But if it's a financial reason, they just think it's too much money, and then someone comes and say, I'd like to add $10,000 more to this account, specifically to allow them the option of buying a zip line if they don't need the money for their other maintenance, then I think that would fly. I think that would be legal.
So the other comment I want to make about the zip line that you just kind of brought up is, you know, if we're worried about, you know, liability and things like that, all our kids climb this giant tree that's in the middle of that field that is far more dangerous than any 75-foot zip line is ever going to be. That's my feeling on that.
Let's get that.
Yeah.
I have a question too about that, although I don't think we're on the zip line article, but since we're talking about the zip line, should I ask it now?
Related, sure.
What are the maintenance costs for maintaining the zip line?
I asked they don't expect there to be anything. If there's a problem, we call them and they come out and fix it. They come out and I think it's like warranty. We should, like any other playground equipment, we should periodically add more footing, more wood chips, just like we do at the school. But the zip line itself shouldn't really require maintenance.
I'd like to follow up on that. There's no annual requirement for that
Inspections or
line
anything?
to be inspected?
Not according to, I specifically asked the salesperson and she said no. I mean,
Does it concern people? I would think that we would want to take a look and make sure that there is a maintenance
yeah, I mean, we certainly,
inspection.
I mean, these playgrounds, it's not your traditional, like, what people think of when they go zip lining on vacation through the Amazon. I mean, it's
That's what I'm
a
thinking of.
piece of playground equipment, like you go anywhere else and they've got the nets and the net material is made of not just rope, things that don't stretch. They're designed to be used for years and years and years by thousands of children and not require maintenance.
Okay, if I could ask Jack, in terms, you would be able to transfer the sequence of these articles?
Yeah.
Okay.
The only thing you have to have in order is bonds. Bonds have to come first. After that, if asked and it's reasonable, the moderator can reorder some articles.
So someone would have to ask you to do it?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I mean, that might be the most logical approach, in which case I would be inclined to, recommend this one, personally, and then take a much harder look at the separate, with the 10,000. Mostly it's a matter of how you're gonna finance it, I think that's what we're getting at.
Well, and how much you're gonna
And how much of it's spent.
get.
So you can't take the request now, Jack, or does it have to be at town meeting?
Town meeting. You can put it, I mean, when finally issues the final, final warrant, because these are only money articles, there's other ones coming. You can put this one ahead of it if you wanted to. If you didn't, then I'd have to do it. And I will plan on doing that, so it's up to you if you want to reorder.
Okay, are we clear on that? So right now, we're gonna vote on this particular one. And the zip line will come later. So the motion, I think we did make the motion, is to approve the additional 10,000 in the fund, which will give them 46, which is a good chunk of money. Are we ready to vote on that?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay. Good. So the next one, where are we?
Article 15,
15, all right.
make a motion to
Okay, so,
raise and appropriate some $10,000, replace the police capital improvement capital reserve.
we got a second. Any questions on Article 15? Ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? None. Okay, good. Number 16, historical preservation. Did you remember this one? last time we were tied 4-4, the selectmen did not recommend it 3-0. So we make a motion to this? Basically, we should, we always make motions positive and we vote it down. Keep consistent. So if I could have a motion to
I'll
that.
move for the 10,000.
Okay, and, is there a second? And a second for 10,000 for the historic documents. Any discussion on that?
One thing I wanted to clarify with the chairman.
Yeah, I'm gonna just
sorry.
let Emily speak first.
You're the rule follower.
Go ahead, Emily.
You deserve your reward.
I just didn't know if there was any new information about, I know when we talked about this previously, one of the things that I had asked about was sort of the scope of the project, and I wanted to know if we had some sort of scope of how much overall it was gonna, I mean, it sounded like 10,000 was kind of just the beginning.
Yeah.
So I didn't know, is
And a plan.
or in a plan or anything like that, I just didn't know if there were any updates.
If you remember, we added extra money
Yes.
over the selectmen. And I think that study is gonna give them a scope of work. I think that the ballpark estimates they had was ultimately could be $30,000-$40,000. That was my understanding, and that this was a down payment. But they don't have a specific scope of work for us. That's my understanding. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. On a new, point clarification for you, on the new to establish a capital reserve fund, does that take a 2/3 vote or a majority?
I think it's a majority.
So the majority? Okay, and then my only comment on Emily's is that this would be unique for us to kick in, to vote to kick in $10,000, no matter what the purpose or noble, purpose of the whole award was, without any sort of plan of how the money's being spent, who it gets spent by, the agent of this. It, has been changed to the Board of Selectmen, that was formerly the HDC coordinator. It would be unique to say, here's 10,000, I'm not sure what you're gonna do with it or how it gets used, but, okay, you'll figure it out, that would be unique. With committee members. Even though I think we're all really behind the project.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, can I just follow up real quick? So you mentioned that the plan, the rough plan is to use the money, the $3,500 to establish the scope of work?
That's my understanding.
Okay, so that seems, I don't know, when I ask someone to come look at a project at my house, I don't generally get charged for scope of work in a bid. So I'm just trying to understand why we would spend the money, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
can't someone kind of like,
I think it's a different agent, a different kind of person.
okay.
I mean, the first one is more than just a scope of work for a specific, purchase. It's a study of the whole situation and what needs to be done. Yeah, I guess if you had a housing inspector, you have to pay a housing inspector to come in and inspect the housing. Then you go after the phone. Yeah, okay.
Chairman, just to clarify that was to work with a volunteer, to start documenting.
Yeah.
It was not to provide a scope of work. So it was
Right.
not for them to create a
Yeah.
bid, it was for them to start documenting and cataloging what was there. That's what we did in that budget.
Yeah, I think you're right. I saw the short term of that. But they would need to do that before they could come up with a scope of work.
I'm just struggling with the process.
Okay.
I am too.
Yeah,
So we'll vote.
Yeah.
yeah.
I agree. We were really struggling with this last time in that my sense of the board, and I don't want to speak for the whole board, my sense, my personal observation of it was that we thought it was a worthy cause, a worthy project. But there was no business plan. If someone was going to a bank and says, I've got this fantastic idea, the bank would say, give me a business plan, how are you going to implement that fantastic idea? Part one was completed, I think, very well, but part two was, there was weird, it was mysterious.
Okay.
And so that was why there's a 4-4 vote, that I believe the board thinks it's an important project, but board was frustrated by the lack of how you're gonna get from A to B to C. And that was the discussion. I think that if, some volunteers from town would help that committee create a business plan, it would probably be very well received.
Okay. Any other?
If I can make a recommendation that we move to vote on this, we spent a long time during the last meeting on this, and the person, I don't even think Will was here tonight, so I could just, if we could, I'd like to make a motion to vote. Call the vote.
Oh, okay. Any further, I'm just asking, any further discussion, we're ready to vote? All right, all in favor, which is spending the money? I'm gonna vote, okay. So there's 3 people, all opposed? 3, 4, 5. Did I come to first?
I changed my mind for last time.
Oh, you did, okay.
Because of the lack of.
So it's 5 to 3, I think. All right, good. It's not recommended 5 to 3. All right, now we're on to 17. $10,000 for hiring a seasonal recreation. This is another one we get tabled. I think you've heard some description of what this would be. It's not, apparently, not necessarily just the summer season, might be used for other events, but it's 75 times. Any further, do I have a motion on this?
I'll move the $10,000 for hiring seasonal recreational director.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, any questions or comments? Yes, go on.
So I know when we initially had discussed this article, Bertha, you had indicated that there was a contract from the Y for this upcoming season, but I'm still unclear as to if that's what exactly happened.
I was notified by the Y that they would be able to run Camp Newington next year, this year.
Oh, but is there an actual contract?
There is not, usually the contracts aren't, until after town meeting or in the month of March.
So,
That's when they backed out last time.
Okay, question about the specific duties of it, I don't, is Becky still here, or did she leave? I'd like to have a little more specifics around what this person will be doing. If, let's assume that the Y goes forward, and I know that's an assumption to know the contract, but I'd like to understand the project that this person will be working on. Similar to the previous article we were discussing, sort of, what are they gonna be working on?
I'll try to answer that best I can, but I was at the Y meeting. But it, from discussion at the rec meeting, should the Y not come through, like happened last year, this person would be setting up hiring and overseeing, like Martin had to do a lot of that last year, setting the whole program up and getting people hired. Should the Y come through with a contract, it still should have some town oversight. I used to go in there to check them on every so often. I know other people from rec would check. There were complaints coming out, from the people we had, and somebody had to go through the town to get to the Y. So, if in fact the Y does it, and then of the, I don't know how many hours it would be, maybe 100 hours or so, then that person can take their talents other places and try to set up more programming outside of the Y. It's not, and there was a lot of misconception, I think, at first. This person isn't coming in to run the summer program. This person would be representing the rec committee to oversee the program, and that doesn't mean sitting there 5 days a week, 7 hours the other day. It means checking in, like I would, like anybody would do that. They hire somebody to run something for them. And the first, I remember this bucket asked a question to us when we first approached it was, do you think that's enough money? Well, we don't know. It's something we want to try. If it fails, you'll never hear from us again. If it's successful, and it could be expanded, and I think, personally, I feel it'll be in a line item, if it goes through, it'll be a line item in the rec budget next year, not an addition, it'd be, under rec, it'd be, rec director. If that person can go, here's one for instance, if somebody at one time wanted to set up a bunch of a ski program where a bunch of parents could go, meet and go skiing. Somebody who knows the business could go and say, I want a group rate of like 10, 12 people, 20 people, and save people in the town some money by getting group rates to different events. I know years ago, a long time ago, we went to Amesbury on that big inner tube slide thing right off of 495. That was set up by the rec director. We saved a lot of money by going by a group. So this multifaceted is something, we'll plant the seed, we'll see how it grows the first year, and then we'll reevaluate the whole thing. Septemberfest is a tremendous amount of work. Becky's about exhausted by the time that's over. I mean, some of us, I spent the whole day in the grill. It's nice to have somebody helping. As I said, everybody's got a job on their committee except Bill Wright and I think. And I'm not that smart about some things. But to try to do and I appreciate other boards, this board here, the planning board and other boards have spent a lot of volunteer hours, I know that. But it was a burnout last year. So it's something we want to try, see how it goes for a year, whether it's more, if there's no guarantee to why anything could happen with COVID and everything else. That we don't want to not have a program, and I wasn't involved, but they really got to scramble last year.
Jack, so I'm sorry. This is a stipend, $10,000 stipend to a person.
No, it's an employee.
This is an employee.
Right, I did ask at the budget meeting, could you hire this person as a contractor? And my reply was kind of under labor laws, you really couldn't do that. You'd have to hire him.
It's an hourly employee that could be paid,
No benefits.
So
What's that?
No benefits or anything, right?
I'm sorry, no.
No benefits?
No.
other than FICA, everybody else.
and this would be a specific hourly wage and a specific amount of hours that you feel are gonna be necessary for the job? That's what the 10,000 covers?
Yeah, I think, I personally would think, look at somebody like a gym teacher or something who's looking for summer employee and has some time, like the school has a part-time gym teacher or something like that, who knows the kids, that'd be a perfect probably candidate, I don't know. But if it's somebody with some recreational type experience, and again, it goes through, we haven't put a lot of effort into setting up a job description yet, because we don't know if we're gonna get the approval first. But, first you got, my own opinion, first is you get the approval from the town, then you set up a job description, then you advertise the job, you do background checks, all that's gotta be done. And then you probably hire, if we shoot to get the person in, say like in June.
So what happens if the YMCA after town meeting, to Jess's point, pulls out of the summer program and you get this person on an hourly wage and there's no money left for Septemberfest or anything else?
So we'll
during the
just
course
do
of the year?
it, look, then, whatever, when the money runs out, we just start digging and do what we gotta do.
You pay the YMCA to run the program.
Yeah, it's based on so much per kid, I think.
It's in a line, yeah.
Yeah, I think, what I recall, it's been a while, was, we paid them half, I think, the down part, if I recall, but it's probably different today. We pay them half up front. All the money for tuition goes to them, then they reimburse back to the town. I wish I had the numbers, I think, but the total cost of the town for the summer program is not that high, because anybody that's tuition to the school can tuition into the summer program, but they pay full cost. There's no break.
Yeah, I guess my point is, for some reason the Y falls through, this person would probably have to work more hours, but they'd be there, and you would use the money, you didn't pay the Y, pay some, charge those hours.
Yeah, like, if you look at last year's budget, it was all in his wages, I think, or whatever.
Yeah, right.
So,
Anyway, just while in the 70s and 80s, the town had a very substantial recreation program, even its own band, and they had trips for seniors and regular people, cultural trips, and it was very nice.
yeah.
And I think that, for $10,000, that's what, $10 or $11 a person in the town, that's what cheap dude. I think they could do a lot.
That's really how I met a lot of my neighbors when I first moved to town. A lot of the town people was through some rec programs.
But to me, it's, it's a pretty good investment of what they can provide for services. But, go ahead. Yeah.
John,
Chris?
let Emily go first. She has her hand up.
All right.
I just would like to make a couple comments. One is, I think the not having a contract, I mean, I think no matter whether or not this warrant article moves forward or not, you know, I've already signed up my kids for other camps, some other, in addition. So it seems sort of late to me that they would wait until then to do a contract. I mean, I've already put down deposits and, I may be a little ahead of the game, but I just want to point out that, especially with the staffing shortages and things like that that are going on, it would behoove the town to get something in writing with them sooner than later. But also, in the past, when the Y has run the camp, there's been times where I have wished we had someone who was acting as a town representative, that we as parents knew that we could pick up the phone and call this person and say, this happened at camp today, or what, and there hasn't been. And I think it's been, the Y has their other programs, we're kind of like a side, like my head stepsister of the Y. And I think that, we're not necessarily, and I'm not trying to knock the Y, but I don't know that we're getting the best from them. I think it's just, that's kind of what was done, so that's up until last year when they decided to pull out, it felt like a few weeks before camp started, maybe it was longer than that, but it seemed like it was very short notice. So I think, whether or not the Y is in the game or is doing the camp is not really relevant to it. I think that having someone who's, who, like Jack said, who can go to camp, check in, make sure things are running smoothly, make sure, Old Town Hall, that's the main base. Make sure that, hey, I was appalled when I went into Old Town Hall last summer and saw what was going on in there, because it was a mess. Someone who's looking out for the town and our buildings and our property and making sure, unfortunately, kids are kids, and I'll be the first one to say, I have twin boys. They don't, they make a mess. So, I think having someone there and having a liaison makes a lot of sense.
Chris?
Chairman, I was at the Recreation Committee meeting last week when they spoke to the Y, and the point was made from the Y that Newington would share a director with Greenland. So we wouldn't even, from the Y, as part of our contract, we would not get our own director of camp. That director of camp would probably spend the majority of their time in Greenland. So to tag on to Emily's point, I think it's important to have somebody who has the town of Newington's interests and the kids' interests in mind. I personally benefited from a recreation director when I grew up here in town, and there was a lot of great programs then. Just wanted to add that as I was at that meeting.
Okay, great. I think you're a good example then. Maybe Kevin,
Teacher.
Yeah, we used to way back hire our own camp directors, so it's a lot of work. I'm not against the Y, but I think the points are well made. Yeah, go ahead, Fred.
I think it's a great cause. I think you guys are heading in the right direction with it and how it should be used. It's eerily similar to, I don't quite have a plan yet on Article 16, but we'll figure it out as we go, which is just from a budget perspective, my only hesitation, but I think it's necessary. I think there's a really good reason to do it. I think you're probably headed in the right direction. I'm afraid you're gonna run out of money.
Probably. Well, more projects than they can do.
Yeah.
Any further discussion on this? Are we ready to vote? An aye vote recommends the $10,000 for the rec coordinator. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstention? Okay. Now let's see. We're down to Article 18. Next, I get a motion on that. Print radios.
A motion.
Okay, is there a second? Second. Emily, any discussion on that? If none, if we can vote, all in favor of Article 18, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions, good. Article 19, I get a motion, 5,000 for major fire equipment. Okay, Brandon, and a second, Chris. Any discussion on that? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions, none, okay. Article 20 is $2,500 capital reserve to the cruiser mounted. I think that we discussed this earlier. Did I get a motion on that? Okay, and a second from Emily. All right. Any further discussion?
Yes, please.
Sure.
Nobody else. Chief, are there any savings in any of the current technology that we have? That's the recording devices that are either on the cruisers or otherwise that are we gonna be able to see? Maintenance for those, refits for those?
Right now, we have, the systems are old in the cruisers right now, so we only have, at first, and they were all grant funded prior to my time coming in. I want to say they're 12, maybe 12 years old. So we only have 2 systems in there. Maintenance, I know with these systems, even, I think they had a 5-year maintenance plan, if I recall. But I do know Two-Way has assisted us in the past with any maintenance costs because we have a contract with them regarding equipment, radio equipment and cruiser equipment. So that's a yearly cost to us. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure how much that is. But with the newer systems, I couldn't tell you, Brandon, right now.
Thank you.
Any further questions on 20? Are you ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions, none. Okay, good. Article 21, the last one, which is the zip line, $25,000. Doesn't say a zip line, but that's basically what we envision. Any further discussion on that?
Make a motion, John.
Okay, yeah, in a second? Second, okay. Any further discussion on Article 21? I think we have an understanding, we're probably going to try to put this ahead of the other one. If there's no further discussion, a yes vote, recommend 25,000 for the zip line, and no vote, does not recommend it in this house.
Just make a comment.
Sure.
I hope that everybody understands, not just on the budget committee, that the town selectmen and the budget committee together work pretty hard to find $25,000 every year in order to keep taxes level, which they get a lot of pressure for. And this is a big number, and that's, I guess, all I wanted to say about that. It's a big number. There's a lot that we do, and a lot of conversations that we have, and a lot of committees that come in here to talk about very, very specific things in order for us to find $25,000 every year. And this is a big chunk.
Okay.
I also remind that there's been discussion about switching around the order such that if this article does not pass, the intent would be that Article 14, I think it is,
It's something.
would follow after this one, and there's an opportunity there.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Is that the understanding so
That's
far?
the understanding we have.
Okay.
All right, are we ready to vote? So, a yes vote is to recommend the 25,000, no vote is for no. We'll start with, we have a motion?
Yes, we have to make a motion.
All in favor? Anyone? Okay. Any opposed? Okay, any abstentions? Okay, that's good. Any, that concludes the warrant articles. I think the last thing we have now is a review of the minutes. If someone wanted to move the minutes, accept the minutes. Do I have a motion? And a second. Is there any discussion on it? Any questions or?
Can you remind everyone we're still excited?
Hey! He's still in session.
Okay, it's sort of relative to the minutes, and you can look at that, Jennifer, but, you remember you caught that discrepancy, and they combed through the budget and discovered it and rectified it.
Yeah, I actually have a question about that, maybe I wasn't clear during my initial issue. When Brandon recommended that we increase the budget by 20 grand, we were talking about, the maintenance for the town building budget. And if you take a look at the budget, the budgets were raised on electric, heating, and water. And that wasn't the purpose of Brandon's motion to raise the budget by the 20 grand, whatever the number was. And this also doesn't address the fact that and I actually have the sheet right here, where the fire department, maintenance budget goes to $70,000. And then when you take a look at the 22 book, it's reduced by 43. And so there's still a disconnect for me here. I understand when you take a look at the total number, the fact that when Brandon recommended that the town building budget line gets reduced by 20,000, I saw that in the minutes. But that if you look at the previous language to that, it was all on maintenance costs. And so the changes that were made were electric. I'm repeating myself, but there was a little bit of noise there. There was electric, water, and gas. So that's still, I think, a disconnect.
So the budget the motion that Brandon made was for $200,150.
Yes.
And that's the number that was approved by town meeting.
But that's not what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is, when we were looking at our budget books for 2022, the 2021 line item in the town buildings budget was not the same as what we voted on initially.
You had in front of you the selectmen's budget, which had many things like that in it. For example, $70,000 for fire department. And but in the end, the budget committee needed to make cuts and did. They ended up at $200,150.
And that's not my point. So my point is that when we're looking at our 2022 budget book, the 2021 column is not what we voted on. It was changed. And it was changed not to the degree that Brandon had made his motion for.
So John has reminded us many times that the budget committee just votes on the bottom line. And then the selectmen can administer that bottom line any way they want in that budget. So when you guys voted to cut by 20,000, and you went actually back to the 2020 budget and then plus the LED project. So we had to go in there and figure it out. So you guys vote on the bottom line, and then the selectmen put the money.
But we don't put it on the bottom line. We actually voted on each one of these. We had a discussion about it. So my point is, when Brandon motioned to cut the budget by 20,000, which is approximately 20,000, I don't understand why there would be cuts made in the line items that we did not discuss.
I can just tell you that I listened to the audio today of that meeting, and I'm glad to share it with anyone who would like. But bottom line, I have Brandon's exact words here. Subtract the 2020 administration from the 2020 budget, and I think what I'm looking for is to amend what we voted on, which was the 290 to 200,150, which is the building's budget, less the administration, plus 18,000 for the LED retrofit. So that's the direction that the selectmen took, and then modified the budgets to match it as best we could.
But maybe we should take this offline, and I can walk you through specifically
That would be
why
great.
that's not
I think it would be better.
saying.
Look at the line.
It's not about the total.
We do it as an, ultimately, we go to the bottom line.
Yes.
We approve individual lines in studying the budget, because that's the underlying justification for the budget.
But when we are looking to vote on that bottom line, we look at each line item and see what it was compared to 21 to 2022. So what I'm saying is, in the 2022 budget book, the numbers are not reflective of what we voted on at the line item level.
Okay, I mean, we could go on with this for a long time. It might be it was actually trimmed. I don't know. It's supposed to be voted on, because that's the last year. But anyway, I think you need to, we could make a note in the minutes for this meeting that you need to resolve some of these questions. I think that's what you work with Jennifer. I do appreciate Jennifer's effort because you depend on individual legislative people to go down on certain issues. Like everybody, there's too much work. Being one person to do. Okay, so there's that. Now, so we'll, put that in today's minutes. But anything on the last meeting, any further observations or discussions on that? Okay, if not, all in favor of the minutes, as submitted? Aye, opposed or abstentions? Okay, great. Any further business? I think we're good. We'll see what town meeting. Dan Graham, thank you very much, all of you. I appreciate our chiefs for staying through the whole thing. All of the good things.
Yeah. I don't even know who I So that would be
As a matter of fact, we're down a bit because we, our car that we were using for training in court was sent over to the town hall for auction because it would have cost too much to fix. Nope. Yeah, I only, the cruiser that we use for the K-9 is a multi-purpose cruiser. So it's not just specifically, that's why we put, 25-75 cage in the back of it. So it's still used as yeah. I was told
Someone came under the bus.
No,
Do you feel anything sticking out of your eye?
no, and I'm glad you said something to me because somebody said there were rumors going around that we got an extra cruiser and that it's dedicated to the K-9. He uses it for the K-9. Absolutely. Geez, I want to say 130,000 miles. And everything was it'll be, when that dies, it won't be, he's not gonna get a new one. He's gonna get when that gets turned over, he'll get another one. There is not an extra one.
On the highway, there's Red Lily Road car.
We have a lot of
everything's straight down. Oh, yeah. I don't mind passing you off the highway.
First lot is 9 vehicles. We have 9 vehicles. We have 8 right now. So this cruiser is ready to turn over to the town. That will go to the town.